So let's get started. All right, so for cutting up plastic bags, one of the things that I have collected are things like bread bags, Amazon envelopes, these wonderful fun meshes for fruits and vegetables, and even things like coffee bags. You could use newspapers, magazines, old t-shirts and rags cut into strips, all sorts of things. And I'm going to show you how we can take those items and turn them into what some folks call Plarn. You can do, there's two different methods you can use, and I'm going to show you both. The first one is a looped Plarn. And so I'm going to show you here. This, it ends up, it is really, really strong. You have basically a double layer with knots in between. This is one bread bag, and it's a small bread bag because it's gluten-free and those breads are teeny tiny. And out of that one small bread bag, I ended up with, I think it was about 5 yards of Plarn. And that's with it double looped. The other kind that you can do is just a straight cut. And this is no looping. You're cutting the bag in one long continuous strand, and then you'll wind it around a shuttle to weave with. So this, for certain things, is actually easier to work with. Like this is a coffee bag, like this. It's a much thicker material, and so it's not gonna loop as nicely and as smoothly as like a thin plastic bag, and so I decided to just do a straight cut on it. But thin bags like this work great for the looped Plarn, and it actually helps to make it much stronger. But sometimes you might want just a real thin, fine line as well, or like one thick band, and so for that you can do the straight cut. All right, now we're ready to make Plarn loops. So we want to flatten our bag out, and if you are using a utility knife, it can cut real easy. You just want to use like a piece of cardboard or a ruler as your straight edge. And make nice straight cuts. I might need to raise this up just a little bit. Also, my blade could possibly be starting to get dull because I've been cutting a lot of like cardboard and plastic. Remember that you want to keep your fingers out of the way of the utility knife. So I'm holding the ruler down, keeping nice pressure. So I'm going to show you how it works with scissors as well. So these do not have to be super precise. Sometimes if your scissors are nice and sharp, you can actually just pull it along the edge. And There we go. Where it just kind of glides and makes the cut for you. But what can happen is it starts going a little askew. So when you do it that way, so you might want to just keep track of that and like correct it when you see it start to go off. So now we've got our loops. We're going to take them and open them up. And then I'm going to put one through the other and then take that end and put it through the opposite end and pull. Pretty easy. Once you get going with this, it really does start going fast, and you sort of get used to the movement of it. Take it through, one through the other, make like a T, and then put its end through the opposite and pull. T through the end and pull. Now, every once in a while, I'm going to do one on purpose where maybe you're not paying attention and you end up with a loop like that. You want to correct it as soon as you find it, because once you're like weaving, it gets harder to undo and it gets tighter and tighter. So basically all you have to do is loosen up that knot and then just gently give it a little tug to straighten it out. And there, they're easy peasy. You can join multiples of these together. So this one is already done, and now I have this second strand. You do the same thing. You would just, I put this loop through the old one, and then I'm gonna find the tail of this one and put it through that loop and run the entire length through it. And now I have a connection. And so I can go ahead and just continue to wrap this. Easy peasy. It's super strong. There are places that will make sleeping mats for the homeless out of Plarn because it's so durable. It's easy to wash. It doesn't hold germs. And like it can like be easily wrapped up, and it's lightweight as well. You can weave it into shopping bags. It can become functional objects, but also it could be a great way to just make a visual piece of art as well. I've shown you how to make the looped Plarn. Now I'm going to show you how to make just a straight cut Plarn. Out of any recycled material you can do this with. So this coffee bag, I'm going to take off this little twist tie guy that secures it and holds it close. And then I'm going to open up the end. Last time I did this, I waited until I was all done cutting, like until I got to the end to open it up. And it was a little delicate. If you can open it up, that's great, because what that will do is give you that much more material to work with. If you cannot get it to open up, you could actually just cut that end off as well, which, oh, maybe I should have done, because I think this is the problem. So I was a little heavy-handed and like made a tear there, unfortunately, but I think I can still make it work. Actually, I'm just gonna go ahead and cut it, and I might like stitch those ends together or glue them or something so that, or use them as single straight pieces. So that's another thing. You can just cut this straight across and then cut them open and use a single piece to weave with, or like this, you can make one long continuous piece. All right, so now I'm gonna start at an angle. I'm making mine like maybe a 1/2 inch wide, but there really are no rules here. It depends on what you want to do with it. You know, it might be cool to make really wide lengths or really skinny pieces as well and intermix them. So I have this little like vent vacuum seal thing here. I'm just gonna cut around it. No need to get like super fussy here and worry about it being perfect. I'm gonna just keep doing this until and you can see sometimes I just let my scissors glide through the material instead of making the cutting action. But you want to be careful with that you don't get too far ahead of yourself, and you can like glide right off course and put a cut in your Plarn. And I keep saying the word Plarn, and that is a term that's been coined to mean like a combination of plastic and yarn. And it doesn't have to actually be plastic. It could be made out of any recyclable or waste material. So now when I get to the end, I'm just gonna make a decision on where to stop it, and there we go. So now we can see with that I've made one bag, about 1, 2, 3. So I made about 4 yards of Plarn with one coffee bag, and it was a small, just a 1 pound coffee bag. So that's a lot of weaving material. The next thing you want to do with it to make it really easy to work with is to make yourself a shuttle. So traditionally, shuttles are made out of wood, but not all of us have a wood shop in our basement or garage. But cardboard, super easy. The same cardboard that I showed you that is my working mat, I had 2 pieces of it that were pretty large, and so I took one and I cut myself just a bunch of strips that are about like 1.5 inches, 2 inches wide. If they start getting too wide, it makes it harder to use once you get to the bottom of your weaving. So I would say that's like about 1.5 inches, 2 inches is really the widest that you would want to make it. And you can actually make them like even 1 inch wide and just use like for smaller threads and smaller things. They can also be longer than this. I have a wood one that's like not even quite 1 inch wide, and it's about like 16 inches long or something like that. And it makes it real nice and easy for weaving through my entire loom and pulling it out. So these are super easy. I've just cut a rectangle and then I've notched out with my scissors. I just went in and cut out like halfway this way, halfway that way, and made little notches. These notches are to help your yarn stay in place. So you can see here, like if this was straight, then that yarn would just kind of fall off the edge. And so this really secures it. It allows you to actually build up quite a bit of yarn on there too. So like these are nice deep notches on the wood ones, but even that much of a notch is plenty for what you need. To start off, I will just take one end and I loop it and hold on to it, and then I just start wrapping it around. When I am doing the same action with yarn or with Plarn, it doesn't matter. I tend to move my shuttle and wrap it like this. What I have found is that if I am taking my yarn or my Plarn and I'm looping it like this, what ends up happening is I get twists along the way. It's easier to notice this and correct it in the Plarn, but when you're doing it in yarn, you don't necessarily know that you're twisting it. And then as you start to weave and you start to unwind your yarn, like you're weaving it through, and then you go to unwind more to loop through, if it's twisted, it basically creates this like weird little twisty knot on the end that can kind of get in the way of your work, slow you down. You might miss it, and then you've got this weird lump in your weaving. So I find that if I just wind it by, oops, by winding my, my shuttle, then I get a nice smooth wind on there. So then there we go. Nice yarn all ready to work with.